Hey everyone, welcome to Soup for the Soul Signs. We're here with another Decklist video with our good friend Brandon, otherwise known as the Bartolinsky.
What
He
up?
he brings us another 8-bar list again, but what 8-bar list are we working with today?
So today we're working with the new Avatar Last Airbender deck list of 8 bar Toph.
8-bar Toph. I see. So you're presenting us with Toph first.
hmm
Why Toph is the first one you decided to build before we get into our list?
I figured of all the deck lists possible with this deck, with this set, is that I think Toph is the easiest package to kind of like build a deck with out of the box.
Hmm.
And I figured it would be a really good starting point before we get into some of the more complicated decks later on.
Yeah, I have been seeing some lists online. It looks like Toph is pretty easy to just put everything together.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I guess we'll get into it. You want to start walking us through what we have in our list right now?
Okay, let's start with the zeros first. So obviously, I'm starting with 4 of the Toph Wanted, which this is really just your basic salvage brainstormer, but also comes with a really cool ability of whenever you once per turn, whenever you activate a act ability,
Hmm.
you get the top. You look at the top card of your deck, and you have to keep it at the top, or you can put it at the bottom of your deck, which is really important when you want to start seeing certain cards. And it's also super important because as we'll get further into the list, because this deck uses a lot of backups, you can also use it on during your opponent's turn, so it could actually help you, check to see if you actually have to climax at the top of your deck for those cancels.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, what's nice is like you can use like a backup on your turn, and because a backup is considered an axe skill,
Mm-hmm.
you can check the top card on your opponent's turn, which is very good.
Yep, absolutely. And ideally, like the deck will have a lot of different act abilities that you can actually do on either your turn or your opponent's turn. So it's just making sure you can check your deck whenever you want, especially when you need it, and just try to
Mhm.
press down so you can actually see where your cancels are.
Right. Okay. Makes sense.
Next card will be the Aang Protecting Bossing Say. Now, the thing about the Avatar set, most of the zeros you don't really have any really good turn one zeros. Like you don't have a chaser. You have some runners, but they're not exactly great, and there's like no clean cut in the set. So ideally, we just have this card that, as long as you have another character on the field, it'll be a 3500, and then when it reverses something on your opponent's side, you can actually put it to their clock. So there's no real great abilities that you can just like play at level 0, so being able to like kind of disrupt your opponent's kind of like a worthwhile ability,
Hmm.
and especially since there's all these decks out there that have aqua effects where when things die they get an effect, or when they get reversed they get a certain effect. So like this will kind of disrupt that. So it's a really good like stopgap for the moment.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. I mean, I do see that it does send a clock. So I mean, it is a 3500. So if any opponents are playing cards such as like the Aqua, or they're playing like their Chieri level zeros, you could stop those effects from happening because you can move at the clock,
hmm
which is very nice.
Yep. The next card is going to be Toph Childhood. So sadly, this isn't like the Fate series where we have a broken Brainstormer in Sakura, where it has the salvage Brainstormer effect as well as the whenever you check a bar during your attack, you get to salvage from your clock. But this is sort of the next best thing. So obviously, when you attack, when your character triggers a bar on attack, you get to discard a card from hand. You get to pick a card from your clock, add it to hand, and then you clock yourself from the top of your deck. Really useful because there are just times where your key pieces kind of get stuck in your clock. You just want to be able to get them out of there. And plus, since we're playing 8 bar, you can discard any extra bars you draw, or when you trigger them, it'll be all perfect. And then it has the other cool ability where it has an act. So again, this is going to come up a lot. When you tap this card, you can choose 2 of your characters and give them plus 500. It doesn't seem like a lot, but a lot of your characters do care about acts activating. So you want to be able to have as many of these abilities as possible.
Right, which is good. I mean, I do see it keeps the five. I mean, having a power pump on your opponent's turn is nice, but I think just the ability to choose a card in your clock at any point, just to like get through your deck, it adds some deck speed to it because just triggering bar, which is nice because it goes to hand. If you have too many bars, you could pitch. You can pitch a card and add a card from your clock, which you could need a card, and it's any card. So like any card from in there. So if you have a climax in there and it's the climax you need for next turn, you could just grab that. You
Mm-hmm.
need some deck speed because your deck is low and you're trying to get to a better refresh state so you can avoid less damage. It's just very good all in general. And I do see that it says a climax for bar, so that means you cannot use the 2/1 Aang to trigger off of it.
No, which is really sad. I did think about adding that card to this deck list because I wanted to try to see if we can do like the whole 12 bar type of deck, but like it wasn't gonna work with what I wanted to do.
I mean, I would also see like the downside being like that 2/1 is not something you want in your hand at all a lot. I mean, I could see like barring at the hand and then clock it to get the other effect, but I don't know. I'd rather not have that be my bar because you blind stock and you could just blind stock something else you need, or it just doesn't really set you up for the next turn. And since you can't plus off of it, like why have it?
Yep, exactly. Moving on, so we have Aang, the boy trapped in ice. So this is the drop searcher that's in the trial deck. I am splashing a little bit of blue to be able to play some other blue cards, but this is just a simple, as long as you have all your characters are World of Avatar, it becomes a 3K, and then it is a pay 1, discard a card search for your deck. There are just times where like I just need to get through my deck, and like the deck builds a decent amount of stock, so I just figured it's a nice tech card. I'm not 100% sold on it yet. I'm still trying to test it out, but right now it's been doing its job.
Yeah, I mean, it's just your average drop searcher. I mean, that's really all you can say like about running it is just, hey, just a drop searcher to have in your deck.
Exactly, and like there are other drop searchers, but like this one's in color, so this one just kind of feels right. Next card is Katara, new necklace. So this one I'm also kind of testing. It's a little tech spot I'm thinking of. So I am playing 2 other events in this deck, and the cool thing about this Katara is that you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's an event or a character, you can add it to hand, then discard a card. So again, some deck speed. It's not a lot, but it's enough that like, if I really need to get to something, and especially with all the top checks I can do with the brainstormer, I can see where my cards are.
Yeah.
Super useful. And then it also has the other cool added ability of whenever it attacks, it can pump something else by 1500. So in the rare case where I really need to get over something, it is very useful.
Yeah, it helps with your early game with the buffing, and like you said, being able to top check your cards so much, and then having this on top of it, it's just you'll kind of know what's going on the top of your deck at all times, which is nice.
Yep, next 2 cards are Momo, Winged Lemur, which is by far my favorite card in the entire set. I love the ability of just being able to shuffle back 2 cards or 2 characters into my deck and then give something an additional soul. You don't think it would come up often, but just being able to have better damage output or, better soul averages so you can actually be able to side if you really want to, or just putting back cards from your waiting room into your deck so you can actually search it out later or whatever. Very useful. And then it's also the climax swapper that we kind of need. I mean, we're playing 8 bar. There's so many times where the bar is going to be in your hand, and sometimes you don't have the right one, so you want to be able to have some way of being able to swap them. Overall, very good card. And then finally, Katara, no chance given. So this is a final tech slot that I'm working with, and really, it's sort of a meta call. I'm definitely suspecting there's going to be a lot of standby decks that are going to be popping up every once in a while. So the fact that this is a stunner, I think will be relatively useful. And then it also has the additional effect of the Climax Salvager. So I get to discard a Climax to salvage a character. So again, because I'm playing 8 bar, the bars are always going to be in my hand. So if I ever need to get something, I can always just discard the bar to get a character back.
Yeah, it's a very good card because the big thing about it is that it turns your bars into characters.
Yep, exactly. So now we get to move on to level 1. So this is where we start getting into the actual identity of the deck. So the first card is going to be Toph, the Blind Bandit. So this is one of the act payout cards where whenever you do activate an act ability, it gets plus 1500 once per turn. So it goes from a 4500 to a 6000, and then it would be 7000 on a climax combo.
Okay.
And then speaking of which, so the climax combo is that you get to discard a card from your hand, and then you get to discard the top card of your deck and then salvage a character equal to that level. So it's a little bit different than your normal cigarettes combo, where you get to mill 2 and then get back 1 card. You get to mill 1 card twice and get back 2 cards.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really imperative that you get back your key combos for your level 3 turn, or well, level 2 turn technically, but to be able to get your level 3 combo into your hand as soon as possible.
Right.
And then she just also turns into a really big card. She will usually get over most level 1s, so there's like no real issue of her just not being able to contest board.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the top. I do like that it does get you 2 cards back. I do wish it did cigarettes a full 2 instead of just 1 each. But hey, I mean, you're still gonna plus 2 off of it, which is very nice.
Yes, very, very nice. I've come to learn that I usually don't have a lot of problems with hand size in this deck, but still got to do a little bit more testing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next card is Toph Prankster. So this is the other super key card in the deck. So if you've been around, if you've been playing Weiss for a long time, you'll probably seen Hololive at some point, and we've all pretty much seen how the Kanata Marine deck works, and we know how Kanata works. So this is the 1/1 backup that when it's on board and you play the Climax for metal bending, it changes into the 3/2 Toph Climax combo in your hand.
Okay, that's really good.
It's incredible. And it's, of course, it has the backup ability of just pumping by 2,500.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to play 4 of this to be able to have the deck run the way you want it to.
Right, makes sense. Like just how like you would play for the 2/1 backups in Kanata Marine.
Yep, exactly. And to help supplement that, I am playing 2 Shinfu and Master Yu Trapped by Metal. So again, referencing back to Kanata Marine, there's the 0/0 Kanata that sort of like helps supplement playing your Kanata turn.
Mm-hmm.
This is not quite that. This is a close supplement, but it's not exactly the same. So the first ability is that on Climax placement, this gets plus 1,500 attack. It's okay. They'll go up to about a 5k, which is fine for a 1/0, but it's not exactly great. And then the second ability is that you can sacrifice this card from field. If you have the Toph Prankster on field, you can salvage this 3/2, which is important because there's definitely going to be times where it's just not going to be in your hand or you can't search it out.
Of course.
But it'll get the job done. I currently running at 2. There's a good chance I could just drop it to 1 if I absolutely need to, but like this, I'll have to do a little bit more testing to really see like where I like this number.
Yeah, I'm surprised you would even think about dropping it. I feel like you would increase it, then drop it. I feel like you want to see this card because when you think about it, this card is like three more, 2 to 3 more of your level 3.
It is, and it's just like there's other cards I would like to try first, and like the thing about the deck is that there's a lot of cards you want to play with this deck,
right?
And it's just trying to find that perfect balance of like what cards you absolutely need to see and which cards would be nice to see. Like this is, I don't know if this card is absolutely necessary, but it is something that like when you do see it, you want to get it to work. I could definitely, I could 2 seems like a good number now. I could definitely see it going up to 3, but I could definitely also see it go down to 1.
Okay.
And then the last level 1 spot is the other tech card I'm trying out. So it's going to be Suki Kiyoshi Warrior. And I'm on the fence about this card strictly because it doesn't feel like it needs to be in the deck, but I do like the fact that its first effect is on placement and on death.
Okay.
That where you get to discard a card and grab specifically a character. So I want to make sure.
Yeah.
It's specifically a character from your clock and add it to hand, and then you clock yourself on the top of your deck. So again, when you're ever in a situation where either you're 1/0 Toph, you're 1/1 Toph, or you're 3/2 Toph are in your clock, this is a good way of getting it out, so you can actually just be able to get prepared for your next turn.
Right.
And then it has the added ability of when it's reversed, if its opponent is cost 0, then it gets clock swapped. So nice tech card. It's definitely going to be meta dependent, but I can definitely see this getting cut depending on if it's going to be a lot of standby decks, if it's going to be a lot of early play decks. Like this card will probably be one of the first ones to get cut, but I do like it so far.
Right. I mean, I could definitely see how it helped. It's just another way to get your stuff what you need when you need it. Essentially, It's just more ways to get the card that you're going to need for your combo and so on.
Yep, exactly. And I'm trying to get the deck to a point where it's efficient and then try and get like the other tech cards in there later, but we're just trying out some stuff. We're in the first couple days of the set being out.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to level 2s. So next we have Toph High Society. So for the most part, most of your Toph cards are naturally big, but I want to make sure that Toph, your Toph cards stay on the board as long as possible so they can keep accruing advantages. So the fact this is a plus 2k power for your level 3s or higher, very important because your 3/2 Tophs are going to be very big on cross turn. And then it has the other cool ability, which is similar to the 0/0 Toph, where it says when one of your characters triggers a climax, it doesn't matter if it's bar or not, but as long as it triggers a climax, you can discard a card from your hand, and then you can sort of do like a pseudo cigarettes combo where you mill the card of your deck and then you salvage a character equal to the level. So just useful during your mid to late game where like if you really need specific cards back in your hand, like your backups or if you want to get your 3/2s, super useful, very nice. And then it has the last ability of act, tap it, and then give something plus 500. Yeah, choose one of your characters, give it plus 500 power.
Sure.
Again, another act ability to help activate all your other Toph cards.
I think the big thing is just like you can turn your bars into other cards on top. So it's like there's a lot of things you could just trigger through.
Mm-hmm.
And what's nice is like if you have the 2-1 out and the 0 bar combo, you can see what's going to go into your clock first. And with that in mind, you're like, okay, maybe I don't want to also pitch to grab a card for triggering my bar. I mean, I want to leave that on top because I don't want that going on my clock.
Exactly. Like the back row cards for Toph, so the Brainstormer, the Sakura bar card, and then this 2-1 assist, like they all kind of synergize with each other, where if you trigger bar, if you do your activate abilities, you're always going to be able to top check your deck. And that's going to be very important, especially near the late game when you start compressing.
Right.
The last few level 2 cards. So we start seeing our backup package. Mm-hmm. So obviously, we want to be able to play the Katara Vengeful, which is our memory kick backup. Very important. I just feel like memory kicks are like going to be very important going forward because a lot of the cards nowadays are very dependent on either having a full board to do their effects or they're really dependent on staying on board to finish their effect. So this is just, you have to play this card. Mm-hmm. And then we have Toph and Aang, Earthbending Lessons. So this is a very powerful anti-change backup where you just get to take whatever character whose level is higher than your opponent's and then put it to clock. So it's just, I feel like it's one of the better ways of dealing with a troublesome card. So instead of like, it's no memory kick, which is fine, but the fact that it doesn't just put it to waiting room or put it to stock, but like it just puts it to clock, which is just harder to get to.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, I've seen this effect before. I've normally seen them on actually 1-0s, and they pitch 2 from their hand. So being able to pay 2, it seems kind of heavy though, because it's like you're paying 1, you're sacking 1, and you're pitching 1. So, but it is only for 2. Some anti-change counters are like 3.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really depends on how if you really need that board or not. That's the only problem I could see with it. But it's definitely, I think, the only one that's in this set, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The only one.
So we got to run what we got.
Yep. Exactly. And then the final level 2 card is the event There Is No War in Ba Sing Se. Okay. So I feel like you have to run this card for many different reasons. It's just, one, the fact that it requires for you to discard a climax for its effect is completely negligible. You're playing 8-bar, you're always going to have 1 in hand. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that you need to have 3 or more green cards, again, negligible. You're playing almost mono green. But sure, the 4 cost is a little steep, but we will be generating a lot of stock with this deck. And the fact that you just get to bounce your opponent's character to hand, just not for free, but like just without any other caveat attached to it. So if you're worried about your opponent tri-fielding their climax combos and you're afraid that they're going to just flat out kill you, or if they absolutely need full board for the combos to work out, you just bounce one of their cards back to hand and everything fizzles. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, it's nice. It's like, you do essentially remove an attacker with that 4 stock, and because you're playing bar, you'll probably have the climax in hand to use it.
Yep, exactly. All right, and then finishing out the deck with the level 3s, we're playing 4 of Toph Metal Bending. This, honestly, in my opinion, this card has been doing work because it is such an efficient card for what you want to do. So, obviously, sort of like how Kanata works, you can change into it on level 2, and then on attack, if you have the climax combo out, you can salvage a card, or you can salvage a character back to hand, and then you could take another character from your waiting room and put it to stock. So ideally, if you have backups in your waiting room, or if you have other cards you just want to play next turn, you just sell them back to hand, and then your level 0s that you're pretty much done using, you just put them to stock.
Right.
So you're effectively generating twice as much stock per turn by using this card, which is great.
Yeah.
And then it also has the other cool ability of just when you attack, you can pay 2 to deal 2 to your opponent. Right. So you get to choose one or the other.
Okay.
And ideally, if you early play this, you just start generating stock and getting backhand advantage, and you just compress your deck as much as possible. And then when you finally get your opponent down to like 2-5 or 3-0, you just start pinging them for 2 and you hopefully try and kill them. The next card to sort of round out our blue cards is Katara Desire to Help. So to round out the blue package, ideally what this deck wants to do in general is to kind of grind out your opponent. So there's no other healers in the deck.
Mhm.
So Toph has the ability of being able to, when Toph is frontal attacked, you can look at the top card and then you can mill it or you can keep it on top.
Right.
So, which is great because it'll help you cancel more, but you don't technically heal.
Mhm.
So with this Katara, you can early play it if you have a full board, and then you can discard a card to heal the stock, which is great. When she's placed, she gets the ability of, during your opponent's turn, she gets plus 4k power.
Right.
So then she becomes a 12/5 during your opponent's turn. It's unfortunate she doesn't get it immediately when she gets played because she's only an 8/5 on placement,
Right.
so like she's really small. But like in some cases she'll usually live. And then during your opponent's turn, she's a 12/5, and they attack into her thinking that they'll get over. Like, you're going to have a bunch of backups in your hand. They're
Right.
not going to try and kill her. So, very useful. It's just to help slow down the game as much as possible, and then for you to get all the advantage you want, and then to try and like work up all the cards to kill your opponent. And then the final card is Toph Melon Lord.
I am not Toph. I am Melon Lord.
Or you have to play it. It's your stock swap in the deck. Like,
Right.
if you're playing green, you have to play this card.
I agree. It is just a stock swap. I mean, you might even play that if you're not playing like green. You might just have to put it in just because splash green just to play your stock swap.
Exactly. I've seen many decks play like 5 to 6 green cards and then Melon Lords. Like, you got to play it.
Yeah. So that's the end of our deck list. Brandon, if you had to tell me out of 5 stars, where do you think this deck sits?
Personally, about 4. Like,
Really?
Yes. So I feel that the 8-bar Toph deck is pretty much like not solved, but like you can take all the core cards and you can put them together, and it leaves you about like 10 to 15 tech spots. Like, it is going to be very straightforward. You can add in pretty much whatever you want. You could probably switch out the blue package for maybe red or yellow,
Okay.
and it'll function basically the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be the easiest for people to pick up and to be able to play and learn. And I feel like it'll be perfectly fine. Like, if going into the next competitive season, I would not be surprised to see this deck more often.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. If you want my personal opinion, if I had to take a look at it from what I've seen, I haven't played against this deck yet, so this is my first job looking at it. I think it'd be like more of a 3 out of 5.
Wow,
the only
really?
reason I see this is because, there's a lot of different things. Like, just so people who are watching this to know just what kind of things. Like, there's no hexproof on Toph.
No.
It can be played early, which is nice. Unlike Kanata Marine, it doesn't +2 you. It gives you 1 to hand, 1 to stock.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can't really refill your hand after playing it like you could with Kanata. Because the big thing about Kanata was that you played your 3 and then you flooded to 3. You healed for each Kanata, and then you also, regrew your hand. At most, you will only +3 back to hand. The things that I do like about it is that I had a lot of top checking ability on your opponent's turn, especially with the 3/2 Toph, and if you had the Brainstormer, you had stuff where you can essentially check 2 cards. Oh, see a dead card, bottom it. Use my backup, check the dead card, bottom it.
Yep, exactly.
Bossing Say, I'm not sure how I feel just yet about it. I think it's good. My only problem is that you do need 3 or more, which is nice, and you have the climax in it, and do you have the stock to facilitate it? Is the other things that could be run into issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially if in your big turns in the end, you swing, you burn 2, you pay 2, burn 2. You're gonna use up that stock that might be needed for the Bossing Say. So I like it as an option though. There I feel like it might struggle a little bit versus some of the higher decks. Like like Bossing Say, like if you have an on attack ability, it doesn't really cancel it. Essentially, like for example, like against like if you're playing against like Itsuki, it does have the burn 3 on just attack.
That's true.
I think it has a place. I don't know. I have to play against it a little bit more. I haven't really gotten my testing against it. I think it's still a solid deck. I don't know if I could put it in the 4 range yet because we don't really know much yet. But I think on first looks, I'm going to give it a 3 right now. My opinion may change depending on the matches I play against it.
We will see.
Yeah. Well, that's going to round out our deck video. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any comments on the deck, let us know. Anything Brandon could add. And of course, stay tuned because I think we'll probably have another one within the next week or 2 because Brandon is testing this set like crazy.
Yes, I am locked in a room testing this. Please send help.
Well, thanks guys for joining us. We'll catch you next time. This is Soup for the Sultans. Catch you later.
Peace.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this decklist video. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe, it really helps us a lot. Be sure to tune in for our next decklist video featuring Jason and Alejandro. Once again, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.